Seim, hope you're having a good Friday. Today I'm going to show you guys the secret layer. Today's topic is going to have a lot of tips about using layers and looks and effects, not only in Lightroom, but in Photoshop and even extending into apps like Capture One and others. I actually talked about this in today's Pro Photography podcast. I'll link that in the comments because we were talking about the overarching theme of what level you edit at. And that's something we took on in a little more in depth in today's Pro Photography podcast. So check that out if you're not already subscribed. This applies especially now in the new versions of Lightroom where we have a ton of opacity control, especially if you make or use your own presets, if you use presets like mine. So if I go to the develop module here, I took this at sunset of this horse in the back of a pickup truck. So I'm gonna go and process this, right? And I know I'm going for that kind of gold sunset look. So I'm just gonna go to my own gold comb presets and do something a little intense, like deep gold dynamic, right? Now, in Lightroom, you see this right up here. We have this opacity slider, and you've probably seen it before. You've probably used it before. I've mentioned it in a lot of videos, but I'm gonna give you a bit of a new perspective and kind of bring together what I've been talking about these sliders in the videos. And also we're gonna look at Photoshop and how it relates to that. This actually also applies to how you edit in Capture One as well. There's really three levels of editing, right? This is a raw file. So here's a raw file. What did I just do? I applied a preset, and you can see I've cropped it a little bit, right? And now I can go up here in Lightroom, and one of the things presets have become even more essential than ever is that we can just turn them up and down. I can have a film look or a gold chrome look like this, and I can just be deciding how far I want that to go, and it dynamically adjusts everything right down to the curve point. We have this really intense edit. Or I could go the other way and say, no, I want this to look a little more subtle. I just want kind of a warm sunset look. That's like a level 1 edit. A JPEG out of camera is what I also call a level 1 edit. It's basically a raw file that a basic process has been applied to. Only when you do it with a JPEG, the camera throws away all the rest of the information and you have way less control. So I wouldn't recommend that. In Lightroom now, we can really do level 2 edits. Now, a level 2 edit is where we get into doing a bit of masking, right? Being specific about softening skin tones, darkening backgrounds. That's what I would call a level 2 edit. It's still a natural edit, but there's a lot more going on. So you can see here's my raw file, right? Then I applied, I believe it was Portra 400 from Filmist presets to it. Then I went in and I applied masks. Okay, so I applied a whole bunch of masks, which you can do manually over here in Lightroom. I do those with, again, a preset, and I'll show you why, other than just the speed of doing these combo masks. Let's delete all these masks, okay? So here's the level 1 edit. Now, let me show you why you wanna be doing that in a preset and why this secret layer concept actually makes it so much better. Okay, so if I go to here, I've clicked this Portrait AI Glamour preset, which is a combo mask preset from Elegance. And you can make presets like this yourself. I show that in other videos here on the channel. You notice we just applied 10, 12 AI presets here, right? So this is one of the beauties of Lightroom, that you can take this even further than you can in Capture One. We can do layers, but you have to manually select them. So we've done this right here, but look at this magic that comes up here. We have that opacity slider. Now you can select a layer over here and adjust the opacity in the masks panel, right? But if you do it as a preset, you can adjust all those layers simultaneously. So I can say, what does this look like if I turn it up, right? Notice how everything gets crazy smooth, too creamy, too much, right? Or I can turn it down. So there's a thing in editing, especially as we go into these level 2 edits where we're doing more localized correction, and then level 3 edits, which you don't do in Lightroom and Capture One. Those are in a Photoshop or a layer-based type app, and we'll look at that in just a second. So we have a common point of reference in the secret layer. Now we have this AI masking, so it's way more advanced masking, but they did something really smart, and they actually gave us an extra layer. So yes, we not only have the ability to add a layer like in Capture One, and then we can turn the opacity down if we want, we can adjust it up and down, but Lightroom's also allowing us to go above 100. So we can say, okay, this is 0, here's my baseline, my level 1 edit, just a basic film look. Here's my preset, here's more, here's less. What this does when you do this It's kind of like when you're in Lightroom and you say, hey, I'm gonna shift Control R, shift Command R and reset to quickly give yourself perspective. Here's what I started. Giving yourself perspective in an edit is really important because the more tools you have, the more sliders you have, the more layers you have, the more masks you have. I say all the time, you always take your best images into Photoshop. Because as you build up, you're playing with actions, you're burning, dodging, you're pixel and shadow painting, you're building up those layers and the photo just keeps getting more and more refined. You can go too far. Your secret layer is actually to take all of those and adjust them, turn them on and off. Give yourself that perspective so you can kind of step back. I'll often zoom out on a photo when I'm editing it and go way back and not just zoom in, because I learned when I started doing large prints that I was always right up here looking at close details, and then I would make a print and I would see all kinds of stuff that I'd missed because I didn't step back enough. So in Lightroom, the secret layer is that not only of that level 1 preset edit, but with all these 12 masks combined, I'm editing all of these. I'm turning them all up and down simultaneously. You don't have this feature if you manually add these masks. You only have this feature at the moment you add a preset. The thing is, this isn't just about Lightroom. Let me show you another photo that I did a level 2 edit, that is edited in Lightroom with basic masks and corrections, and a level 3 edit in Photoshop. Here is a photo from a session I just did. Let's reset it. Here is raw out of camera. Pretty good, but it's a little busy. We need to tone down the background, etc. Okay, fine. Here is Filmist, elegance mask, some manual tweaking, toning down the background. Looks pretty good, right? I mean, if you looked at this, it'd be like, that's a pretty extensive edit. That was my level 2 edit. Then I went to Photoshop and I did a level 3 edit. That is, I built up more layers. I played with some actions like Alchemist, but I also just manually painted stuff in to give a more illustrative look. I did a fairly extreme, okay, Lightroom edit, level 2, final Photoshop edit. And at this point, it's almost a painting, right? So that's a pretty strong level 3 edit, but it's not like some AI generated thing. It's a real photo that I've then edited and worked on. But let's go to Photoshop for a second and look at that. Here's the secret layer in Photoshop. The real secret is when you can combine all of these settings that you've done, whether it's a preset, whether it's a bunch of layers in Photoshop, whether it's a bunch of masks, and adjust them simultaneously. And I actually did a video of this edit that I posted to my Instagram and my Facebook page where I kind of showed the process. And I was out in the session, I took this photo, I edited, I was painting, and you may have seen that video. Here is the gist of it though, right? I started with some Alchemist edits, right, to do some basic edits. Then I started doing painting. I did pixel painting and shadow painting where I started bringing in details. You can see here, I'm softening contrasts and painting in to bring more muted tones. On this one, I'm actually using mixer brushes, right? Not just a transparent soft brush. I'm going down here to actually like watercolor and oil brushes and using mixer brushes that pick up the underlying color like I show you in my Photoshop workshops. So shadow painting isn't that difficult. You're not painting from scratch. You're kind of sampling existing colors. You're painting in. I won't get too deep into that today because it's off topic. What I do want to draw your attention to is if you've noticed, I've put all of these into one group, right? You can select all your layers and Control G or Command G and put those into a group. If you use any of my actions, you see frequently that it already does that. Now you can see, I can turn this group off. There's that level 2 edit from Lightroom. Here's our edit here. I can also take this and say, okay, this is cool, and I like it this way, but I might come back a week later with a different perspective. Sometimes it's good to come back and review yourself. I might come back and say, okay, this is too much. I'm going to turn this down to 50 or 60%. And notice what's happening here. If I turn this down to 50%, now it's illustrative, but the photographic strength of it is still right there. You're seeing the pores in the skin, and it's not like a painting so much. Obviously, I would need to do a little bit of cleaning up because I've done some brush work and stuff here that's kind of giving me these shadowy hazies, right? But you can see here is like this midpoint. If I go all the way up, it really is still photographic, but it's a very illustrative type photograph. Let's look at another photo. Here is that level 2 edit. Here's that level 2 edit. So far, we just have the base layer, right? So normally when I start an edit like this, I'm going to go in and say, all right, let's go to something like Alchemist. I'm going to do the Freak retouch, which is kind of a general skin balancing of tones retouch on a Photoshop level, a little bit of glow. And you can see it's still very photographic. It just works with our skin tones and gives us a little more. And there's a lot of these kind of actions that I make, but look at the pattern. right? Whether I'm editing manually or using an action, you can see that everything in here is within this group. And oftentimes there's groups within the groups. What that means is I can not only turn it off to see if I like it, but more importantly, I can edit the opacity of those as 1. Now, I might say, no, let's go in a completely different direction. I'm going to go up and I'm going to run a platinum tone. This is from my signature emulsion actions. So I get an authentic platinum tone and I'm like, let's do the wet plate variant and see how that looks. At this point, what I'm doing is I'm experimenting. Actions are just making it easier and faster. That's not the secret today, although those are very important to being efficient in Photoshop. All these layers I just built here would have taken me 20 or 30 minutes, and I did them in just a few clicks. But notice the theme. Each one of these effects I added is within a group. If I look at emulsion here, you can see that even within the group, there's some groups of layers. So I can say, here's the plates and mods, and I kind of have this gritty look. What happens if I turn that group down? Oh, it softens it up. It's not quite so gritty. This is why I always leave all my layers free and open. You can go in and turn things on and off, change things around. That's how a good effect should be built. That's why I don't like using plugins, because it basically hands you this nice effect, and then it says, oh, you can't do anything with it. It's baked in. Whereas when you edit this way in a vertical editing, where you're building these layers on top, you can not only control those layers, but then the secret layer is that you can group all those layers together and turn them up and down as 1. You can also use it to get your perspective. Did I edit too much? When you go into Lightroom and you start adding masks and layers, and we have all this control now, and even in Capture One, where the layers are a little more individualistic and not quite as high tech as the Lightroom layers, but you can still start doing a lot of things. What you're gonna find is it's easy to over edit. I know you've done it, and I know you've taken a photo, maybe it wasn't perfect, right? It's like, oh, this is not quite there. And you edited it and you edited it and you're like, it's gonna get there. I'm just gonna edit it until it gets there. And it just almost like, it looks good at the end and then you come back like a month later and you're like, ooh, what did I do? I've done that so many times. The way you cure that over editing is by using the secret layer. The secret layer is turning things on and off. It's adjusting the opacity of things as a unit. It's doing all those edits and manipulations and then analyzing yourself. Now I can turn all the masks on and off. This is a good feature right up here in Lightroom, just like I would turn a group of layers off in Photoshop. I apply the preset and now I have this available, right? And in most apps, you can't go beyond 100%. You can just go up and down. So Lightroom is very unique in this, and we have a massive amount of control here. Once I get it dialed in, once it works on this image, and this is the beauty of Lightroom in a level 2 edit, I can then just copy it to all the similar images, and it's gonna paste those same AI tools. A level 3 edit, at that point, you're dealing with a lot more manual things. Even if you're using actions and building layers and stuff that way, you get into brushes and burning and dodging. A level 3 edit is more finite. That's why I reserve that only for my best images that I really want to do something magical with. So we have 3 levels of edits, different ways to kind of manage this secret layer. And the secret layer, yes, it's a tool in these apps, but it's also a perspective of how you manage your overall effect and balance it out to make sure you're not overdoing it or underdoing it, because yes, sometimes you need to turn it up a notch. Let me know what you think, and if you're using these techniques. I hope presenting this way was helpful, because I've been talking about a lot of these features in various videos, and I wanted one video that talked about them from this perspective for all of these different apps that have this kind of layer functionality. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.